Alireza, back-to-back victories for you, but most importantly, I think it's for the first time that you're beating a world champion. You've tried against Magnus quite a few times. You didn't manage to get him while he was a world champion, but now you got your first scalp of a world champion. How do you feel right now?
Yeah, I feel really happy. Yeah, for sure, it's easier with champion than Magnus, but of course, Ding is very strong. I'm really happy to get this victory because now I moved to +1 and it's really important.
And this game was not easy. You were actually under pressure out of the opening.
Firouzja started with e4. The world champion Ding Liren plays e5, and we have the Rui Lopez, an opening that has been played a lot in the recent world championship. So fresh memories for Ding. Ding plays knight f6, d3. The Berlin, bishop c5, c3. Castles and castles. So there's no queenless endgame here. They have a middle game with some characteristics of the main line, with d4 incoming. d5 by Ding Liren. Knight d2 takes and takes. Pawn a5, queen c2, queen e7 and a4. So we have a very interesting middle game position where white has a very nice bishop which cannot be challenged with any pawn here because the a pawn is already moved forward, and ideas of transferring the rook to d1 and knight to e3 or g3 are there. And black can also think about getting the knight to f4 and this knight to e7, g6, f4. So interesting middle game, knight b8. Ding transfers the knight to d7 and then b6 and so on. h3, rook d8, and bishop e2. So there was c6 incoming. That's why the bishop went back early. Rook e1 and knight f8. So it's a long knight dance by Ding. Knight b3, bishop goes back, and knight d2. So both sides move their knights to get to good squares. Knight c4, and immediately the knight gets taken. Takes, and knight e6. So Ding has got what he wanted. He wanted to get to f4 somehow. So he's trying to play knight h5, knight f4. Nepo, sorry, not Nepo. I got used to saying Nepo after the World Championship. Firouzja plays g3. Alireza Firouzja plays g3, controlling the f4 square. It weakens the king a little bit, but it was a necessary move to play. Pawn h5, immediately played by Ding. He wants to weaken the king a little bit more with h4. King g2 and h4. Here, queen e2. So Firouzja brings his piece close to the king for defense. And now g6. Preparing king g7. Knight d2, knight c5. Now e4 pawn is slightly under pressure. This knight cannot move. The bishop is not yet developed. So how will Firouzja develop his bishop? He plays knight f3. A very nice move. He's basically giving the pawn for free. But what's his point? After takes, and if black takes, this is what happened. So takes, and black took. His idea is he plays knight g5. That was what he was preparing. So basically the point is if knight takes knight, bishop takes back, the e-pawn will be taken back. So there is no problem for white. White should be okay. But then knight d6 by Ding, and Ding is now in control of the game. He's a pawn up, and Firouzja is not getting this pawn. Because now the pawn can push, rook e8. He defends the pawn, and h4, king g7, rook f1, rook d8. And now bishop d2, e4. So Ding has a very solid advantage here because he's got an extra pawn and white's king is less safe. Bishop f4 and e3, rook d1, knight e4. This was a very important moment. And in this position, there is pressure on f7, and bishop takes knight is in the air. But if Ding finds this move, knight e4, he would have been in a winning position.
Advantage if Ding can find this move, knight d e4.
Not a difficult move to find at all.
The f7 is hanging. That's the problem. That's why it's maybe a little bit he's calculating. But if this move is played, he's just winning because if let's say rook takes d8,
okay,
rook takes d8, now you have a very strong threat of rook d2.
Precisely.
And if you play the move bishop e3, just try to collect the pawn back. There is a tactic, knight takes g3.
Discovered attack on the bishop on e3.
Ding played knight e4, but the wrong knight, I think, to e4.
Absolutely. This looks like a inaccuracy. And now bishop d6 will allow Firouzja to completely get back into the game here. Bishop takes d6, eliminating this knight. Knight d6 is the only move because of the rook f7 threat. And after knight d6, bishop takes f7.
Whoa. Stop for just a second because there is rook takes d6. And rook takes f7 is going to be met by rook d2.
Rook d2, yes.
So sorry, please continue.
So the
Bar,
best
bishop
way,
f7.
actually, white has options now even here, guys. You can also play knight f7 or bishop f7, but I think
The point being, if knight into f7, then just rook takes back, and just activate the pieces. Knight f2, and then queen e4 check is coming. Queen e6 is an idea. So white got the pawn on f7, but no active pieces. Black is the one with the active pieces and this nice pawn and an active queen as well. So instead of playing knight d4, which would have got him a very good advantage, he played the wrong knight. He played knight fe4. The big difference here is now after bishop takes, knight takes, the problem is bishop takes f7. And after knight takes, rook takes f7, Ding is just in trouble because he's losing his queen. Takes. And here it's queen versus rook, bishop, and a pawn. But the queen is a bit more powerful. Here, queen e2 to stop the pawn from going forward. And at this moment, Ding played the losing blunder of the game.
Mutually agree.
And black rook is also free. It can move to d file and try to play actively.
Yeah, but it's one of those things. The power of the queen is so. Her ability to change directions, whether it be on a diagonal or a file. Okay,
King
here,
g7, let's
King
say.
g7. Now, in the immortal words of Nikolai Menev, gift me your pawn.
I guess I have to defend with rook d7.
Okay.
I didn't want to
Keep you busy.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult to hold for black.
one
Yeah,
thing,
exactly.
one suggestion maybe, guys, maybe the best is to keep the rook on an e file at all times.
Okay.
And let's put the king on g7. So
Okay.
as soon as we white moves the queen, we have this idea of e2.
Okay.
So like, let's say in this position.
Yeah.
So if the queen moves, we play e2. And now bishop f2 is a serious threat.
Exactly. So we'll just kind of.
And now maybe rook e7 first. And now some bishop e3 ideas possible.
Bishop e3 ideas?
Yes.
Yes. So
And
that
then
you
bishop d2.
Oh,
can go bishop.
Ding had to stay on the e file and stay here with the king, keep the rook on the e file, because if he stays like this, the queen can't move. If white queen moves without a check, the pawn will push forward. And then ideas of bishop coming in will be there. So white queen is stuck. So this was a way to hold the draw. Keep the rook on the e file, move the king away from any checks, and then if white plays g4, h5, try to get the bishop into a good place and help the pawn forward. So Ding plays king e7, and that allows Firouzja this crucial tempo to get the king in. Now the white queen is free to move. That is a problem. And after king f6, just queen check, king moves, queen check. So this is the winning plan. White has to get a pass pawn here, and black doesn't have a way to get the pawn forward. So takes, check, check, and he wins the g pawn and he gets two pass pawns. So Firouzja is firmly in control here, and after g4, he's almost done. Because rook check, king moves, rook check, king moves, rook check, king moves, and rook g2. But then queen check, and here the world champion resigned to the young Firouzja, Alireza Firouzja, who's currently residing in Paris. And with that win, not only did Firouzja beat the new world champion, he moved to world number 2 spot because Nepomniachtchi also lost his game against MVL. So Firouzja is now the new world number 2 with this win.